With great power comes great responsibility.
Compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move. It is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
Never step onto the battlefield of ideas unprepared. Before you enter the fray, you need a plan. And there's no better place to get one than right here on Tactics with host Caleb Colquitt. The Situation Room goes live now on News Radio 1440.
Good evening. Whoa, mic is way over here. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tactics right here in the Situation Room, whether you're joining us via YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Twitch or Periscope. However you're watching the show, we certainly appreciate you making us a part of your day right here on Tactics, where speech is not violence, tolerance isn't love, and disagreement isn't hate. So thank you for being with us here on the program right here in the Situation Room. As always, on Wednesday, we endeavor to try to do a political story that has a little bit more of a spiritual side to it. So we tend to do a lot of cultural stories, and this one is going to be no exception. So there was a headline today earlier that was run by the Daily Wire, and I'll just kind of go through it and then give you my reaction. Headline, Daily Wire, self-partnered Emma Watson doesn't describe herself as, quote, single as she nears her 30th birthday. Actress Emma Watson, an outspoken Hollywood feminist, does not like to describe herself as single as she nears her 30th birthday, but rather self-partnered. Quote, I'm very happy being single, the Harry Potter actress told British Vogue during a recent in-depth interview. I call it being self-partnered. Watson told the magazine that she's feeling stressed and anxious about the Big 3-0, which she'll be celebrating in April. Quote, I was like, why does everyone make such a big fuss about turning 30? This is not a big deal. Cut to 29, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so stressed and anxious, Watson admitted, and I realize it's, oh, they used the British spelling of realize, that's funny. I realize it's because this sudden bloody influx of subliminal messaging around. If you have not built a home, if you do not have a husband, if you do not have a baby, and if you are turning 30, then you're not somebody credibly secure, stable, place in your career, or you're still figuring things out. There's just this incredible amount of anxiety. Nonetheless, the feminist said she's happy being single or, quote, self-partnered. Quote, I never believed the whole I'm happy single spiel, she said. I was like, this is totally a spiel. It took me a long time, but I'm very happy. I call it being self-partnered. So, a couple of things here before we delve off real deep into this. The truth is, I understand to a certain degree where she's coming from. And full disclosure, I'm a huge Emma Watson fan. I think she's a phenomenal actress. I think she's one of the most gorgeous women in the world. I was a big fan of the Harry Potter series when I was younger. I thought that even though the new Beauty and the Beast left a lot to be desired, I thought that she actually played a really good Belle. I don't think it's her fault that a lot of the movie was, not bad, but not up to par with the animated version. But I'm not going to go into a whole movie review here. Suffice it to say that I really like Emma Watson as an actress. I think she's very talented. But this is where she kind of goes off the rails, because at the first part, she's talking about that there's this real stigma that if you are a person that is turning 30 and you don't have a house or you don't have a really stable career that you know where everything's going to be coming from, or you don't have a husband or a kid or all these things, that there's something wrong with you if all that happens and you've not turned 30. That's a stigma that she is correct in pointing out is not right. Even though I'm certainly not somebody that has it all figured out, and I frankly don't think that anybody above 30, if they were being honest with you, would tell you that they've got it figured out. I'm somebody that just turned 30. I'm not even a full year older than Emma Watson, so I get that. I understand that stigma. I turned 30 in June, and people kind of look at you funny when you're a 30-year-old and you're not married, you don't have a kid. And this is especially true in the church. I think there's a lot of church members that are very well intentioned, that really do want the best for you and really are concerned about you. It comes from a good place. I'm not saying it doesn't. But there are a lot of church members that think that there's something wrong with you if you haven't got married and started having kids by the time that you're 30. This is especially true in the Church of Christ because it seems like everybody gets married when they're 20. And I'm not talking about in their 20s, I mean when they're actually 20. Like, you're the weirdo if you're 21, 22 and you still haven't got married in the Church of Christ. But anyway, like I said, I think all that does come from a good place. And I actually do genuinely think that it's a good thing for most people, not necessarily all people, but that it is a good thing for most people to not prolong adolescence, to not put off starting their life into a really long time. I think that getting married at the age of 18, 19, 20, if you're ready and you know who you want and you're really in love with the person, then yeah, go for it. Why would you want to delay that? I think that in a lot of ways, our society was better and our marriages in society were better when we didn't delay that. And I think that there's quite a bit of evidence that goes along with that. I think that we have an incorrect view of what marriage ought to be and what life in general ought to be. And so a lot of the things that Emma Watson is pointing to right there, she's actually 100% right on. It's the way that she deals with that. It's the conclusion and the solution that she comes up with that I think she has made a mistake, because this whole idea of self-partnering, the reason that I think that that is incorrect, because I'm happy being single. I really am. I mean, there's certain days where I wish that I wasn't. And sure, there are occasionally times where I get lonely, but everybody gets lonely. I've known people that are married and have a great wife who's attractive and kind and a godly woman, and they have a house full of kids that are good kids that still feel lonely. That's something that affects every single person. Marriage and having a family certainly help with loneliness, but they're not a cure for it. And I realize that I'm a very, very blessed man. I've got great friends that, I mean, would give me the shirt off of their back if I asked for it, would do anything for me. I've got a great church family, people that were willing to give up their own hard-earned money just to keep me alive when I had cancer. I've got several great jobs. I know that that's a weird thing to say, but I have several jobs, several different hats that I wear, and I love all of them. I love doing the work that I do. I work at a great place. I live in a great place. There's a lot to be grateful for. And one thing that is important to note in that, and I'm going to try not to delve off too far off the trail here, but one thing that the devil is constantly doing, he is constantly trying to get us to focus on the thing that we do not have, or the thing that God has not yet permitted us to have, rather than the things that we do. You'll notice that when he tempts Eve in the garden, the first thing that he does is, has God said that you are not able to eat of every tree? See, the way that he phrased that question is so important. Because what he was doing is he was trying to get her not to focus on all the other trees, every other tree in the garden that she was permitted to eat from. He got her to focus on that one that God said, don't do it. That was how he tempted Eve, and by extension Adam a little bit later on. This is really kind of along the same lines, because when you're looking at all the things, and Emma Watson is a very blessed person. She's a very rich woman. She has a lot of opportunities. She can go anywhere that she wants. She's had an opportunity to travel, meet a lot of amazing people. And I don't know if she's a miserable person or a happy person. I don't know her personally. And I don't really pay much attention to entertainment news, so I wouldn't know a lot about her general demeanor when she's off camera. But I do know this. This is a recipe for making yourself miserable. And here's the reason that I know this. I don't know if she's engaged in this a whole lot yet, or this is a lifestyle that she's been living, but I know that what she's talking about here is a recipe for misery because of the focus and where it is. You see, by saying that, no, I'm self-partnered, you're putting the focus on you. Because when it comes to living a life of love and joy and contentment, the way to do that, the recipe to do that, is to surround yourself with people who can help you and who you can help. Surround yourself with good friends, family, church family, whatever form that takes. And I know it's different for different people. There are some single people that are single and incredibly happy, people that have never been married. And I'm talking about people well past their 30s. That happens. It's rare, but it happens. But those people are generally people that are surrounded by very close friends and family and have a purpose in life and are driven towards something. You see, the reason that this whole idea of self-partnering is appealing to people like Emma Watson is they're really just making stuff up to make themselves feel better. Because if you were truly content with being single, if you were truly okay with it and you really didn't have any scruples about it, you wouldn't have to make crap up to make yourself feel better. That's not something a person that is truly contented does. For example, if you are a person that is content in your career, for example, you don't make up weird terms and try to come up with new ways to talk yourself into being content with your job. You just are. And that's what's going on here. Now, Emma Watson, like I said, is a very talented, beautiful young woman. I'm sure that she could have, basically her pick of any guy that she wanted to. She's just not met the guy that she feels is compatible for whatever reason. Again, I don't know her personal life. I don't know what she does when it comes to dating. And frankly, I don't care much. But what I am concerned about is this growing sentiment that has taken hold of apparently her and other people that, well, you know what? I'm really married to myself. It's called sologamy. That's actually a term that they have coined. There are people that are performing self-wedding ceremonies that they're marrying themselves. This is a thing that's actually happened. Weirdly enough, people actually pay money and invite people to a ceremony where they marry themselves. It's not how marriage works. Marriage has to have one person marrying another person. And of course, the biblical example, the correct way of doing that is one man and one woman marrying for life. But even if you're taking all that other stuff out of it, and even though, of course, gay marriage and polygamous marriages and bestiality marriages and all those other things are absurd and ridiculous, and they're not fitting within the definition of what a marriage actually is, the bigger issue here is it's putting all the focus internally. It's saying, you know what, I'm married to myself and I'm going to make myself happy. No, that's a recipe for making yourself lonely and miserable. If you want to be happy as a single person, find purpose outside of yourself. It doesn't have to be in a mate. Find purpose in a friend. Find purpose in a cause. Find purpose in your work. And most importantly, and this is the way that most people that are single that I'm aware of are really content, find purpose in God. Find a spiritual calling. That's how to avoid being a miserable single person. This is obviously a person that doesn't want to be single, but has to come up with an excuse of why they're not single to sort of make themselves feel better. It's not a healthy way to look at it because it's putting all the focus back on you. You're essentially saying, you know what? I am the perfect match for myself and I'm all I need to make myself feel satisfied. No, that's not how human beings work. Think about this. Since we talked about Eden just a second ago. Do you know what the first bad thing in the world was? Most people would quickly rush to say, if you have a biblical worldview, the first sin where Eve partook of the fruit and then gave to her husband. It's not. When God made the world, the Bible says, and God made X and saw that it was good. He made animals and saw that it was good. He made the stars and the sun and the moon and saw that it was good. He made man and saw that it was good. This is something that is repeated over and over again in the Genesis story. The first thing that he observes was not good, and he uses those words specifically, was that it was not good for man to be alone. Now, I think that you can find fulfillment, and I hope this is true because I'm a single person, and I think that there's actually biblical examples to back this up. You can find fulfillment without necessarily having a mate. Of course, that is the fulfillment that Adam found and the helper that God made for him. But I believe that it's absolutely possible for you to find fulfillment without having an actual mate that you marry. Like I said, there's a range of other endeavors that you can engage in, but the point is we have to have other people. Even in the Garden of Eden, where Adam had direct communion with God, God still observed that he needed other human beings to walk with him. And that is significant. What Emma Watson is essentially doing here is saying, I'm just going to love myself and I'm the only one that I need and I'll make myself happy. That's never going to work. No human being at any point in history has done that. There have been plenty of celibate people that lead rich, fulfilling lives because they have a purpose outside themselves. I am laying down the gauntlet right now. I am challenging you. If you can think of a person that found fulfillment in themselves alone and was actually content and stable, by all means, bring that example to me. You can prove me wrong. I'll throw my hands up and say, you know what? You got me. But I just don't think it's possible. I don't think that you're going to be able to find that person because it's not how God designed us. Whether you're talking about the actual religious teachings or you're talking about Plato and Aristotle. I mean, one of Aristotle's observations about what made humans humans is that we gather in the polis, we gather in the city. And because of that, we have a sense of community and a sense of communication, the ability to communicate, that animals simply do not have. And because of that, we are different animals. We are spiritually different in that way. Because if you're just going to, try to hope that your love of yourself is what makes you happy, you turn out to be Jim Acosta. And nobody wants that. If there was ever anybody that should marry themselves, it's Jim Acosta. Because nobody loves Jim Acosta as much as Jim Acosta. But anyway, I think that another thing about that, and the reason that she's trying to justify this to the world and also to herself about how she can really be happy being self-partnered. First of all, it's dumb because it implies that a partnership is still needed. Which, if you don't really need a partner, then you should just say, I don't need a partner, which is a perfectly valid way to say that. You can be a whole and complete person. And by the way, the best partners are people that are whole and complete people, that partner with another whole and complete person to make a new entity that is stronger than the sum of its parts. And I'm not saying that people have to be perfect, but being secure in who you are and understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, those are the people that typically make the best partnerships. But regardless of that, the reason that this is incredibly dangerous is that pride makes you paranoid about your self-image. Because if you are a proud person that wants to present yourself to the world as somebody that has it all together, that is complete, that doesn't have to have a partner in this case that we're using with Emma Watson, then you have to kind of justify it. And you're going out and explaining to people why, no, I really do have it all together. I'm really fine. I'm really good. You see, that's a prideful person. If you were truly humble, and this is a real recipe for contentment, then you'd be able to admit to people, look, I don't have it all figured out. I'd like to have a partner. I don't know if she does or not. You could say if you were like this, I would like to have a partner, but I'm okay with not having one right now. Maybe I'll figure it out somewhere down the road. Maybe I won't. That's a much more humble response. This is seeping with pride. This comes off as a person that doesn't want other people to think less of them because of that. And like I said, when she's opening up and talking about how you shouldn't think less of a person because their life doesn't look exactly like yours, or they don't have it all figured out by the time they're 30, I'm 100% with her on that. But her solution is to puff yourself up and make it look as though you really do have it all figured out. No, that's the opposite approach that you should do. You should take it from the approach of, you know what, I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. Maybe I'll get a mate someday, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll have a kid someday, maybe I won't. I don't know. But I'm good with where I am now. That's where real joy, the kind of joy that God wants us to have, really starts to settle in. When we understand that we're a person that's in process, that we're imperfect, and we're just trying to live the way God told us to. That's where true contentment comes from. Because somebody that's prideful is constantly living in fear, paranoia, and anxiety, which Emma Watson admits that she feels, about how they're going to come off to others. You're constantly worried that somebody's going to figure out that you don't have everything together. But if you live the way that the Bible tells us to, you just kind of openly admit that you don't have it all together and ask for their help. That is going to lead to a much richer, better life and going to form those connections that are going to be able to make you content and joyful more often than you ever will be just being partnered to yourself. If you're partnered to anybody, we should be partnered to God. And the truth is, whether you're married and have kids, or you're single and have no kids, the only way that you are going to find true fulfillment is partnering yourself to Him. There's a great quote by C.S. Lewis, and I don't have it right in front of me right now, but the gist of it is this: it is impossible for God to make us happy apart from Himself, because He is the source of all joy. And so asking Him to make us happy without having Him in our life would be like asking for an apple from an orange tree. You see, God can't do that, because if we refuse to consume the only food that will satisfy us in the universe, through no fault of God's, we are destined to starve for the rest of our spiritual lives. Ultimately, a partnership with God is the only partnership that can make us fulfilled. And that is true whether you're single or not. Stay the course, friends.
Tactics is a production of News Radio 1440 and Cumulus Media Montgomery. Any opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Cumulus Media. The theme song for Tactics is 6 Foot Town by Big and Rich. Graphics by Jessica Dawson. Broadcast studios provided by Cumulus Media Montgomery. Location studios provided by the Dalraida Church of Christ. Copyright 20